What is up, guys and girls? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all having fun, and I hope you're all getting out on the water as much as possible. Reckless Riders is here in El Medano, and we're coming back at you with another YouTube video. This time we're going to be doing a little bit of a remake. We're going to be talking about pumping the wing, right? How to pump your wing properly in order to get up and going. Now, why I say remake, we do have a video like this in the channel. I'll put it up the top of the screen here, wherever it goes. You can check that out. That's from a few years back, one of the first videos we made for wingfoiling. But the reason we're remaking it is that I want to show it in a more general way and a little bit more about the two different ways of pumping. Also because one of the ways has become a lot more popular just because the wings now are getting stiffer and stiffer and stiffer, right? All the new wings are super stiff. Foils is becoming more and more mid-high to high aspect or super high aspect foils. The boards are becoming faster, so the gear's changing, everything's evolving. The changes I'm going to talk about, they're not that big. I'm not going to actually compare them. I'm just going to go in and tell you the two ways that you can pump your wing. Now, before we go into that, let's say two main basic things that will be the same no matter what kind of pumping you do, and I just want you to keep that in mind. So first thing for pumping, right? Now, keep in mind we're talking about two-hand pump like this, because in our previous video we have talked about pumping two hands, about pumping one hand and stuff like that. But we're talking about the two pump because at the end, that's kind of like what everybody falls to, right? That becomes the default. But when you're pumping, no matter how you're going to pump, the two main ways we're going to talk about are nice big pumps. So we're going to be like gathering in a lot of pump, little power like that, or a lot of little fast pumps. So no matter how you're pumping, the two things I'm going to say now, they're the basic, they're the same for both. One is keep your body straight over the board. What does that mean? Try to keep your upper body here, your chest over the center line of the board. Don't lean out. One very common mistake you see when beginners are trying to learn how to pump, especially if they come from like kiting or windsurfing where they're used to hanging on to a lot of power, they tend to pump and lean back. Now, when you lean back, first of all, you risk that you're going to fall off your board. So many things that you might just fall or lose. But also, even if you don't fall off, you might notice that your board's edging a lot because you're leaning out and you're carving upwind and losing power. Or that you're even taking off, but while you're taking off, you're carving upwind and just crashing. So you don't want to affect the board out of the straight line while pumping. You want to keep your upper body here over the center line of the board, stay there. The most back you go is when your wing comes to you and you come to the straight up position. So it's mostly you lean out forwards, away from you, and then back into straight, but never past the straight point. The second thing is a little detail, but it makes a big difference. I've said it in so many videos, is your elbows. So when people pump, they tend to try to pump like this and they see that the wing is getting very close to the water. They start to worry, they start to try to lift it up like this. And you see when you lift your elbows, when you do this, your wing doesn't like that. It's actually folding in and the tip's coming towards the floor there. So look what happens if I keep my elbows in, right? So as I'm here, I did nothing except turn my elbows in. So you want to keep your elbows inwards the whole time, no matter what you're doing. Now, if you haven't been doing this already, it might feel a little bit weird, it might be a little bit uncomfortable, but constantly remind yourself that, because it's a little detail that makes a huge, huge difference, right? So as you're going here, you're going to keep the elbows in, stay over the center line of the board, and pump. And that's the basic kind of few things you want to remember while pumping your wing. Now, let's move into the two types of pumping that I was talking about, which is basically, like I showed you before, the big wide pump and the fast little one. Now, the one I really want to talk about is the fast little pumps, right? And the reason for those is that the equipment gets stiffer, the boards are faster, the foils more high aspect, maybe faster foils, especially when you get more advanced. So why do they help, the little pumps? They help you generate more consistent speed on the water. So what that does, it will get your board going faster on the water and help you take off easier on a fast foil. Now, usually you want to be on a foil where you're at least on the surface of the water, semi floating. You know, you don't want to be like sinking all the way here ideally, but I think if you're riding that kind of board, you're probably watching this video. Now, you're looking for speed on the water. So first thing you want to remember when you're doing these pumps, besides the two basic things that I said, is you're trying to generate as much consistent power as possible. And we're trying to do this as smoothly as possible. What do I mean by that? You don't want to be hearing this, right? If you're hearing that, that means you're pushing back against the wind, so you're actually creating resistance. So what we're looking for is more. Now, how do we do that? Well, again, keep the basics in mind. Over the board, elbows in, and you're going to start pumping. So you pump by pulling the wing in through the elbows here into the wing. So it's a lot kind of back and forearms working. You're just going right. Now when I pump here, you see if I pump just straight, you hear that flap, and that means there's resistance in your wing. If I make that move a little bit more circular, you lose that sound. That's because the wing has to go in a circular maneuver and allow the wind to flow through it better, right? You don't lose that much power, but you don't have any resistance. So at the end, it's much better. So you go 1, 2, 3, right? Like that. So you're pumping in and making it slightly circular. Don't overdo it. Don't overthink it and be like, okay, just go around like that. You don't want that. You still want to be going out. So full arm's length if you can. Bend the elbows in towards the hips. So the wing's coming, if it's a bit higher, it's coming down here. Then as you reach the last part here, that's the same kind of here where you are, and you go back. So you extend the wing forwards again and in. Like that, right? So elbows in to the hips. So if it's high up, you come into the hips downwards, back out and forwards. And you're doing that. Now again, as I said, don't exaggerate the round part too much. I'm just exaggerating it here for you to feel it, to see it and understand it. What you're looking for is smoothness in your wing and to hear as less as possible this movement there. So you're gonna go 1. So now even the wind's just dropped, we have light wind still, but if the wind's just dropped and we don't have much power in the wing, but even in this light wing, I can do that, right? So recap on the little pumps, we're looking to stay over the board, elbows in, and we're going to pump from the front just a little bit where the arms extend to. My elbows are coming towards the hips, so it's coming a little bit in and downwards, and then back out and forwards and repeat. And you're trying to do that as fast and as consistently as possible in order to create power. Now, that's the one that most people seem to be using these days, because most boards have become quite fast, kind of flat bottomed, not too over concave, so on, like nothing to slow them down. They focused on getting that board to go as fast as possible in order for it to take off easily. And foils are getting usually a bit faster because everything's going a bit more kind of long, higher aspecty, not too much, but enough to make a difference. So then you want to use this kind of pumping. It's going to help you a lot more. Now, the other kind of pumping, the big pumps, is not that they don't have their place, because I said the conditions changed. The equipment changed. It's more that it helps a lot beginners, people that ride big, not necessarily big, but slow foils. So they have kind of a thicker profile, they're a bit more volume-based foils, so they can take off at a lower speed, and all they really need is kind of an oomph. If that's what we want, then these big pumps are going to be more efficient and easier to take off and faster to take off. It can also help people like me when I go on my 70 liter board. I'm very heavy, so I usually sink it, so I'm down to here. So if I'm there, this is going to help me really quickly. It has that sudden oomph and lift. So basics the same. We're over the board, elbows are in. We're going to extend forwards like we did before, and this time we're going to bring the wing in. And we're going to not only extend forward, we're going to even bend forwards a little bit. So it's like we're really going into the front and away just to scoop in that power. And we're going to bring it again into the hips here and then open back out around. And remember to keep those elbows in to keep that tip off the floor. So we're going to go. And you see, again, you don't hear that flap in the wing because I'm not going straight straight out like that, right? That requires that there is a lot of wind anyway, so it's not really helpful to do this pump, but we're going forwards and pulling in, forwards and pulling in. So what does this forwards and pulling in, especially on the big one where we're kind of extending forwards, like we're really overdoing it? So that's like we're trying to grab the power from there, pull ourselves and give ourselves not only lift, but also forward momentum, right? So we're going forwards, pump, forwards, pump, forwards, pump, and it's a much bigger movement. It looks slower, but it's only slower because the actual movement is bigger. Taking my time doing the pump, creating as much instant power and pop out of the water as possible. That's why it's helpful for forwards that are slow, so they don't need that speed, but they need that lift, right? And it's also helpful for people when they sink the boards too much to bring them up to the surface. Now, those are the two different kind of pumping. I might be thinking, okay, what do I do with my legs? Well, this is more pumping the wing video, but I will explain in short what to do with your legs. Basically, it's the same thing, but you're staying over the board, as we said. When you're doing a lot of little pumps, you don't really need to do anything with your legs. What you're trying to focus on from the board's part is to keep it flat on the water, right? Don't go back. That's why we're also leaning forwards. Don't go back, stay flat on the water so your board is flat. Therefore, it can accelerate as much as possible. And when it's at a good speed and it accelerates, depending on your equipment and how much wind you have. So if you're here and you're going, right, I keep the board flat. If I have enough, I can, sometimes all I need is just drop some weight on the back. And of course, we're gonna come forwards again after that to flatten it out, right, once it gets flying. So it might just be weight on the back, shift the weight to get going, because I have enough speed now, right? So at this point, it becomes like being towed by a boat. You're just waiting to get up to speed, and when you have enough speed, all you do is up, and then you flatten out again. So as long as you keep it flat on the water and it picks up enough speed, that's fine. And if once you're getting to the end of this, if you're with a bit harder equipment and you're trying to get it going, you can add a bit of a leg pump like this, and this comes naturally with the same movement as the wing. The same on the big pump, but this, because the pump is so big, because it's so kind of more obvious and aggressive, you see my knees pump anyway, so you've got legs are going to be pumping the board anyway. The basics remain the same. You want to keep that board as flat as possible. You don't want to be pumping like that, right? So you're keeping the board flat and pumping the knees same time as you pump the wing. Now, if you want a better clarification on this, we're looking to keep the weight forwards. For the pressure you should have on a foil board should be 60-40, not mainly on the back. It should be on the front to keep it flat, and only on the point of takeoff do you lean on the back leg to pop it out. So you're looking to stay on the front leg. That's why we said we're extending, we're grabbing, right? Everything's working from the front. It helps, automatically helps that kind of position that we need. And then in order to pump, probably the best way to think of pumping your board, and this is the same for both ways, just much smaller on the fast pumps, much more obvious on the big pump. So what I would recommend is push down on your front leg as if you're trying to push the board forwards, right? So push down and forwards, and then you push off the front, your weight shifts back, so it lifts the board up on foil, and then again you drop to the front and repeat. Kind of like that there. Now, I don't think you've got to think of this too much. First, focus on the wing part and you'll get used to the rest. But if you want to incorporate, that's what you're looking for. And the best way to mix them up, and again, this has already been shown in different videos, but the best way to mix them up is when you go forwards and you pull in, that's when you go forwards and you push on your front foot. How to think of it best? Basically, where do you generate the most forward momentum with the wing? That's when you grab and pull back, right? So when you grab forwards and pull back, you're generating the most forward momentum. And when do you generate the most forward momentum? Through the legs. If you keep the way I just told you in mind, it's when you push the board forwards, down and forward. So you're pushing it forwards. So you're going to combine those two parts. So you're going to go, so you see, I'm pushing and pulling. And then as I'm sending the board forwards and I have the maximum speed, my weight's shifted to the back, lifting it up, and then it comes back forwards to flatten it out, and if necessary to continue into the next one. that makes sense. We didn't focus too much on the board part. It is more about the wing in this video. So remember the basics of keeping your body over the board, elbows in, and then what you're looking to do for the little pumps is a lot of little pumps, slightly circular, elbows towards the hips, making it smooth and very consistent power. And the big ones is much more wide, big, much more kind of oomphy, singular lifts of power, repeated with a bit of a gap in between. If you like the video, please drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. Of course, leave a comment with any questions you have or even recommendations for other videos, just to say hello, whatever you want to do, leave a comment there, and I will see you on the